So I'm very touched that you mentioned you went to Woolwich. I was born in Woolwich. Wow. And guys, I bagged myself a big brother in Lesley more than 20 years ago. We met at Mayor Miramakema's house. She cooked dinner for us. So
tell them, please tell them that we don't cook for us.
And since then, Lesley has been so protective of me. He's a big brother of mine. King Moshoeshoe. I love what you mentioned about grandmothers. Because my grandmother, Lesotho, she used to make those Mongangane. Hey? She used to make jam. She used to make it. And I was told I need to be part of that. Kids and Mongangane. And I said, but that's not my calling. How do you create a Mongangane five? But I still learned how to do it, Mongangane is dried fruit. So from peaches, because Lesotho peaches grow naturally, the same as my and also another skill that she actually forced everybody in the family was to play a musical instrument. So coming back from school, she played the piano. My dad played a double bass, 2 uncles saxophones, others pianos, and I was supposed to play a musical instrument, and I was never interested, and I regret that. But I love music. So I love those nuances that you brought in the book about your things. Thank you.
Thank you so much. These are just the conversations that I want us to have. And to start rediscovering all of those stories from all those years back. Thank you, Puze, for sharing. Really beautiful.
Thank you very much. First, congratulations, Lesley.
Thank you.
On this all-important book that you've written. My question.
Libito sesi, libito. Libito. Oma, wakakai.
Give us books. King Khanyi Mbau.
Hello.
And Tolu Komose Dibandu. Oh no, it wasn't like a thing. We should all be able to do that actually when we produce ourselves, just as a normal thing, and we don't make it special. So the question I want to ask is, what do you think is the role of books like this and African scholars specifically who are writing books and conducting research and telling the stories of Africans and our spirituality in a way that challenges certain narratives, right? So the question that I want to ask is, how do we free ourselves from the notion, for instance, that missionaries introduced us to something new when they introduced us to God, as if we didn't know God, as if Africans never knew God. And we know that Africans have always been in the God story. But we were introduced to a Christianity that almost gave us a sense that we were learning something new, that we had to let go of our practices and ways to do things to follow a new religion, to follow God. And yet there was never a recognition that we always had Belingane, Ukamata, Mudimu. And the fact that we have names for these deities in our languages should tell you that they existed. So how do we start to liberate Africans from the notion that we never knew God before Christianity, that we had no spirituality of our own before Christianity, without alienating the journey of your grandfather, of my father? I come from a very similar background. You know my background, as a minister's daughter. And our fathers, like Lesley said, religion was low at some stage. So there was even a time when there was a sense of oppression within black religion. And so how do we start to liberate black people from the notions that it's either or? It's either we are a Christian or you are worshipping ancestors, or you turn away and you become Christians. How do we start looking at it holistically as spiritual beings, using texts like this and those of other African scholars? Thank you.
Wow, Khanyi, thank you. Wow, another child of a minister. Hey, Khanyi, that's a difficult one. But my answer would be really to open up conversations. They are uncomfortable because, as I said, we question things that we've accepted and lived with for so many years. And suddenly it looks like you're being disloyal to this thing that gave you life. Because my family has accumulated what it has accumulated thanks to the Dutch Reformed Church and the little salary that my grandparents made from being evangelists. But I think the tide has turned, and I think Africans are waking up to their greatness. They're starting to question, and that's really the buzzword for me these days. Question, be curious, and provoke, you know, poke questions, and just want to know why this is done this way and its origins. And this is my modest contribution to that conversation. I hope someone will read it, pick it up and read it and be inspired to tell their own journey or their own approach to it. It's a debate. This is not the how to do it. It's not a manual, it's just really anecdotal, it's reflections, it's, it really is there. But it's a journey that Africans, I think, are ripe and ready for, because we realize that we've lost so much in the fire of colonization, the fire of apartheid. So much of us was taken away. And that's why I say we struggle to tell people about stuff from the Boer War or the South African War. People here, I don't think, we've heard of the Boer War, and it's like, oh, it was the war of the Boers, and that's it. But actually, there was African involvement, and it's time for those conversations. I hope I answered you, Khanyi. It was a difficult one. Oh, Nick.
Hi. Sanibonani ninjani? Igama nguMek Musmasina. Mina ngeke ngikhiphe kamakulu ukuthi ngikwazi kuphi. But I think it's been a while. I've known this man since Asaba Moshoeshoe. I'm not even going to get to it. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's long kakhulu. For me personally, I've been postponing to have something like this for my family. I don't want to see Fiso Mafi of another Tanda, or maybe Sabantuana, Pressure, or You've inspired me, friend. I'm definitely going to do exactly the same, because the history has a guy. John Manisho, Mauibuza Law. Uthi hayi hamba ubuza umalume. Uthi malume auntie, hayi hamba ubuza ugogo wakho. Why ungakhulumi nobaba wakho? We've actually lost a lot of information. So ngizobagubha manje, deliberately so. Because I can see you've done it. Nami ngizobagubha bonke. Thank you, my man.
Thank you, man.
Tumena?
I am.
I've known Lesley for years and years. And the one thing...
Tell them we were chasing Bibi Winehouse.
You were chasing Bibi, my friend. But every time, so I'm from the PR side of things, and Lesley is, he was, you know, he used to be the Swashi of the time. So every time I'll call him, he'd be like, and I'm like, I'm trying to sell a story here, and I'm trying to get him to attend one of my events. And the first thing that he would say is that Bina, and we would sing Difela. So that's how we used to really greet each other. We would never say hi, it would be like Bina Sifela. People in the office, because I'm sitting in an open plane, they'll be like, what's happening here? And like, you don't understand. This whole get a front page. So maybe let's go into the but it also helped that I'm also from a pastoral family. My father is a pastor and all of those things. So thank you so much for writing this book. I plan on reading it yet. I'm going to get my copy and I'm going to read it. But the one thing that I wanted to ask you is, especially in our days, as parents, we are bringing up children, and the church has been so demonized by fake pastors. We have got churches that are now gone broke, and here is a man who actually made a church a shelter for so many. How do we bring back and how do we make church relevant to our society today? Because there is an element of moral decay that the church and the pastors of the time used to play. You know, our parents used to drop us at the door, at the gate, at the church. Now we are afraid to send our children there. What is the role and why this book this time, where there is this big conversation around the church and how it's basically a money-making place. And every day there is a documentary that shows how the men of the cloth are actually, you know, wolves in sheep's cloths. So how do we actually really appreciate the role that religion, the church, plays in our society?
These questions need to end. That's not an easy question. Because now when I set out to do this, it was sort of a historical account. I was looking back to the 1600s, to the 1800s, the concept of church, the idea of this church, kerk ya fora, that it's known as kerk ya fora, but yet it's Dutch reform. There's a disconnect there. How can it be French yet Dutch? Those are the things that I kind of explored in the book. And now you're asking me about church of today, and with that difficult word, the question how. And as I said, this book is not a how-to. So, yeah. I do accept that church still has a role to play in African societies and communities because it's just so entrenched. And I'm not out to demonize the church, but I was more questioning the practices within the church. And I think that's what you're asking in terms of the practices within the church, because they've gone that way. You know, people have been sprayed with doom and things that are just unimaginable. Okay, so my answer is I don't know. That's it. That's an honest answer. I really don't know how to navigate this one. It's a tricky one, it's a difficult one.
Can I help you there?
It's gonna help with the answer.
I'm not saying it's an answer, but I want to suggest the possibility that negativity is always louder than positivity. And when we go into our little villages and the townships, many of the things that we see in the media are not real life for the majority. So while everybody knows a Bushiri, there's Reverend Mawoja somewhere doing amazing work, providing solace for a family that didn't have somewhere to sleep that night. And his wife, Gogo Mawoja, who is allowing, you know, them to stay and cooking them food while they're in a transitional period. So, the good is always bigger than the bad. You just have to pick which glasses you're going to wear that day and what you want to see. I hope that answers you.
I think it does. And I just want to say that the purpose of this book was to facilitate this kind of conversations. I don't have the answers, but I want you to read and engage and challenge each other and ask this question. So I'm glad that Lesley came to my rescue. But that was a beautiful one. Thank you.
The book launch is done. We had some fantastic conversations. I was actually very nervous coming into this. I've never facilitated conversation at a book launch before, so that's one for the books, but also mad respect to Lesley Mofokeng. He's actually inspired me to just go and revisit the project of the family tree and finding out where we come from and documenting it. I think all of us as Africans need to value and tell and share and digitize and notate and write our stories. Home time! Good night.